Everyone knows that mascots are the best part of fast food, but which one is the strongest? This video is sponsored by Scentbird. Mascots have been a huge part of fast food restaurants ever since they started up. Classics like the Burger King and Ronald McDonald have been here almost as long as the burgers and McBurgers themselves, although there's been quite a few changes over the years. Basically, every American nowadays has grown up going to fast food restaurants, and when you pair that with a dose of sports or video games, the age-old question naturally arises. Which fast food mascot would come out on top in an all-out battle? Last time we put together a bunch of cereal mascots to see which one was strongest, but things are gonna have to be a little different this time around. Before we had a pretty clear-cut system, General Mills versus Kellogg's, but all these fast food restaurants are mainly owned by separate companies with a few exceptions. So to get a better sense of the situation, I put all the contenders onto one spreadsheet. This way we can gauge which mascots should be battling each other to make the matches as fair and exciting as possible. I started out with a pretty solid roster. Then I realized, oh, McDonald's has a couple extra mascots. I'll throw those in. Then I really realized, oh, McDonald's has an entire freaking army to itself. Ronald McDonald was absolutely killing it, making McDonald's more recognizable among children. But in the 70s, McDonald's was totally struggling and wanted to find a way to make just a little more money each year. So they turned to marketing company Needham, Harper, and Steers, who came up with an all-new ad campaign, McDonaldLand.
Get yourself ready for a trip through McDonaldLand.
McDonaldLand commercials featured theme songs, a narrator, and all sorts of random characters that were introduced to try to get kids to make their parents drive them to grab some fries. There were a few consistent good guys and bad guys with some interesting designs, and the amount of McDonald's characters grew and grew. Over the next 30 years, the campaign died down, mainly due to legal issues, but the memory of McDonaldLand residents still lives with us today, especially with the recent resurgence of GRIMACE. So change of plans, looks like we're gonna do a team battle after all. McDonald's versus literally everyone else. I compiled all the most interesting looking McDonaldLand characters to go against the most iconic fast food mascots of all time, trying my absolute best to match them up as fairly as possible. This narrows it down to 10 1v1 matches, then we'll try to determine which side would win in an all-at-once team battle. Now these fast food brands have figured out with these mascots that presentation means a lot. It's always important to leave good impressions on people, and one great way to do that is with your scent, and today's sponsor, Scentbird. I remember when I started wearing cologne, seriously it just makes you give off good vibes. It's absolutely the move to smell nice. And Scentbird is a fragrance subscription service that lets you try out a new designer fragrance each month. And it comes in a nice 30-day supply, so you don't have to commit to a full-sized bottle. There are over 600 designer brands to choose from, and they sent me these 4 to try out for the past month, starting with Michael Germain's Sexual Secret Man. This one's my favorite. Smells like a nice tropical vacation with the grapefruit, sandalwood, and nutmeg. Sweet Taboo Chris Collins. This one's like a nice bookstore or antique shop. Coffee, cinnamon, vanilla. Good vibes. And Initio Perfumes Prives Ode for Greatness. This is kind of like a nice incense feel with the wood oil, saffron, and musk. And they're all pretty solid. Summer's the best time to have fun, try new things, new scents. So click the link below to visit Scentbird's site or app and use my code Oats for 55% off your first month at Scentbird. Alrighty, to start, we'll go with the rulers of the burgers, Mayor McCheese versus the Burger King. Mayor McCheese is the leader of the McDonaldLand government, responsible for keeping the country safe and a viable living space for its residents. He's done amazing things like going to space and eating at McDonald's. Come to think of it, he really hasn't done a whole lot, or even helped McDonaldland's severe crime problems. On the other end, the Burger King hardly needs an introduction. He's an absolute icon. While he isn't seen a lot in more recent commercials, he had a nice stretch in the 2000s, where he was seen playing sports, debating, and stealing recipes directly under Mayor McCheese's nose. This isn't much of a competition, honestly. The Burger King rules all the ads he appears in, and I doubt Mayor McCheese has much of a chance at all. Next we got another ruler, Little Caesar, facing against the Professor. Little Caesar doesn't actually make a ton of appearances in the ads other than his little pizza at the end, but in the past he was a band member and a Roman dictator, although he was a bigger deal back then. The professor is one of the main good guys of the McDonaldLand crew, always trying to invent new machines to control minds, talk to aliens, or just contribute to the restaurant's well-being. Now, while Caesar seems like he'd be a great contender to combat the professor's brain, it seems like he's lost all intellect since his days over in Italy, regressed to a teeny tiny baby form that seems pretty helpless. The professor takes this one for sure. Now we got a couple pretty quick ones, Birdie versus Wendy, and going up the ranks for Captain Crook versus Colonel Sanders. Wendy is an absolutely ruthless force. All sorts of other brands have tried to replicate Wendy's intense burns because of her absolute impact on meme culture. Birdie, on the other hand, gets up early and has breakfast. Wendy has too much going on for her, and Birdie really just doesn't. Then we got a similar deal going on here. Captain Crook is a pretty stereotypical pirate, sailing the seas, got the hook and stuff, with the exception of his love for McDonald's foods, of course. Honestly, not a ton to talk about here. Pirates are awesome, but relatively, he is pretty regular. But Colonel Sanders, oh, Colonel Sanders is quite a guy. Other than just being a wholesome chicken-loving guy, he's got a few pretty intense glow-ups in recent history, and I think he'd absolutely cook the captain up. Now for the big dogs, Sunday versus Chihuahua. Taco Bell's mascot was simply a Chihuahua for a while, although this guy could talk and really wanted tacos.
Yo quiero Taco Bell.
He's pretty regular most of the time, but he seems to have led some sort of taco-based revolution, and there's not a lot of explanation for it. Then Sunday. Sunday. He's a puppet that seems pretty similar to Garfield when you take a good dive into his mind. He reads, he talks, and he thinks. Sunday is aware of the existence of aliens in the universe.
There's a world beyond our doors where strange and mysterious forces exist.
And he knows how to read not just English, but radar signals to help pilot a spaceship. It's a close battle, but Sunday has a little secret that I think gives him the slight edge.
Oh, get this. Woman owns dog that's able to read.
Now that's just plain crazy.
You know, this is kind of wild. This is implying that Sunday isn't even a dog, but some sort of other being that could have unknown amounts of power. So we'll give him the point. Sweet, now we got a couple villains, the Hamburglar versus the Noid. The Noid was the anti-mascot for Domino's Pizza in the 80s. His whole life purpose is to ruin your Domino's pizza in one way or another. He's the personification of the problems and challenges of getting pizza delivered in 30 minutes, and while Domino's comes out on top every time, the Noid can cause some serious damage. The Hamburglar is of course the hamburger burglar of McDonaldLand, and honestly, he's pretty regular. The Noid isn't usually that successful, but he definitely has more of an impact than this guy that just steals some burgers and gets caught pretty quickly. Alright, so McDonald's needs a quick boost, and we can give it one pretty easily with Officer Big Mac versus Chuck E. Cheese. Officer Big Mac honestly isn't too special, but he performs his duty as a cop pretty well, picking up all the slack from the mess that Mayor McCheese has left. He catches the bad guys, does his job, and he's a pretty solid citizen of the land. Then for Charles Entertainment Cheese, he's just a mouse, bro. I thought he did cooler stuff, but he's just like mid at all the Chuck E. Cheese games. I think he'd have better odds with his old design, but recently he pulled a Caesar and went little mode. The cop is taking this one for sure. Now for the heavyweights. The fan favorite McDonaldLand representative versus the classic American icon, Grimace versus cows from Chick-fil-A. Grimace was originally introduced as a villain who would hoard cups and try to steal food. He kinda ended up being a good guy though, and since he's been plaguing the internet with his cursed shakes and completely overpowering the world. Cows from Chick-fil-A are pretty basic, but they at least have enough mental capacity to understand that they're getting eaten, and they can write basic sentences in bad English to distract consumers from eating them, directing towards chicken instead. I think we all know the outcome here. Grimace can't be stopped. In all his time at McDonaldLand, when he's determined to eat at McDonald's, to eat burgers at McDonald's, cow meat, he gets what he wants. And to really rub it in, I think Grimace is immortal. In this old McDonald's ad, Ronald uses a freaking time machine to go back to 1323, and Grimace is just chilling there. Not only that, but it seems like he's a medieval knight. There's not even a chance that the cows can be saved from this absolute creature. Now, before we have the main 1v1 event, we have to check in on the weirdest match yet. This is a genuine warning. One of these competitors creeps everyone out. The Spong monkeys from Quiznos. Yeah, so the Spong monkeys are really, really weird creatures that sing and play guitar.
We love these songs, 'cause they are good to us.
I really don't know how these were ever allowed to air on TV. The closest thing I could find in McDonaldLand are the Fry Kids, also known as the Fry Goblins. These guys look pretty weird and just be out gobbling those fries and singing about it. Both sides have multiple fighters, but I really think that the Spong monkeys take this. I don't know, man. There's just something about them that just feels so ominous, and I don't feel like the Fry Kids could compete at all. Now we got the final battle, and I think you all know that we gotta turn to the main man of McDonaldLand, Ronald himself. Ronald could seem just like a regular clown from the outside, but he's shown off lots of very interesting tricks in his years. He seems to have spurts of super speed, either in his daily tasks or going all out with his dancing skills, and he's been seen with all sorts of interesting magical items, such as the time machine we mentioned earlier, a bag of magic flying sparkles, and a magic movie kit. And who else could go against him but another clown, Jack from Jack in the Box. Now from the surface, Jack honestly doesn't seem like too much to compete against. He isn't seen using any sort of magic or special abilities, but out of all of these competitors, I feel like he might be the toughest. Now I mean that mainly in the mental sense. He seems ready and confident to take on any opponent. He's quick, he's funny, and seems like he knows his way around any conversation. But we're talking about combat here, not wits, so we should take a look at some real experiences these characters have gone through. Ronald has gone on several vast adventures all across the land, going to space and finding dragons. Jack, on the other hand, hasn't traveled nearly as much, but he does have more genuine combat experience. This ad shows him beating a bunch of bad guys as a cop, but it's all just a hypothetical movie, not a literal thing that happened for him. But he does have a significantly strong build, and this commercial here is what swayed me over to Jack's side. He pulls up to someone's home that he found in one way or another, and proceeds to take them down just for calling his restaurant
junk in the box.
So?
I take these things personally, Brad.
Get lost.
He forces the man to eat his food, and only then does he let him go. Now, in terms of raw abilities, Ronald definitely takes the match. But because of Jack's determined mental state and his willingness to do whatever he needs to for his cause, I think I gotta give it to him. I think Ronald is a bit too kind-spirited, but Jack would be in the fight right from the start. So there we go. McDonald's characters are generally seen to be a little too soft, and the variety of all the other characters seems to give them the advantage. Now, if we were to play out a team battle, I think that would be a bit of a tougher question, but I think I still side with the competitors over McDonald's. Those characters are just a bit more simple, but their whole world is magical, so you never know. So let me know how you think all these matches would play out, or if I missed any good ones. Thanks to Scentbird for sponsoring this video, and subscribe.